All right, the next segment, ladies and gentlemen, okay, this is the real reason that you're here, all right? One of my favorite people in the city of Mesa is our fire chief. We've gone through the process recently, how long ago? Maybe 6 months ago, 7 months ago. We had a wonderful fire chief who retired, and we thought, well, what are we going to do now? And so went through a very detailed process and came up with this wonderful person. Now, I have never met, and it's going to sound again like I'm exaggerating, which I'm prone to do, but this person is everyone's favorite person. When I talk to people, and sometimes I'll just, out of the blue, say, tell me who your favorite person in the city of Mesa is, or who's the nicest person in the city of Mesa. The name that comes up over and over again is Mary Cameli. So if you don't know Mary, this is your chance to get to know her better. We're very lucky that she's our fire chief. Mary Cameli, please come up. Thank you, Mary. Thank you.
Mayor, I don't think David Letterman has anything on you. You're doing amazing as a talk show host.
Well, having you on the show, it helps a lot, Mary. So I did actually a horrible job of introducing Mary, so let me try this over again. Mary is famous for a lot of reasons. Number one, she's the chief of a really big deal fire department. Mesa Fire Department is, and again, sounds like I'm exaggerating, it's known around the United States as one of the most innovative, one of the best fire departments. And that's partly because Mary has been with it for so long and been in a leadership role and been doing a lot of the innovative things that Mesa is so famous for. So, Mary, at the risk of embarrassing you, when did you start with the Mesa Fire Department?
I started in 1983 as a firefighter.
Okay.
One of the first 2 women hired back then.
So we hired 2 women at the time, started a fire. You went to the academy. You and one other woman. Right. And now you're the fire chief in Mesa, Arizona.
That's correct.
That's great.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Mesa and the fire department have kind of changed over the years, right?
A bit, yes,
yes.
they have. Yeah.
For example, we don't have a Mesa Fire Department anymore, do we?
Nope, we've changed that name a few years back, Mayor.
Great, and what's the name of your organization?
So now the fire department is Mesa Fire and Medical Department. As time went on, initially Mesa Fire was fighting fire only. And as years go on, we find out that we're getting more and more medical calls, and we felt it was really, really important to just put medical in our name. So folks know, because usually a fire truck shows up at someone's house and they said, I didn't call the fire department, I have a medical call. Well, we do it all. We're all hazards department, one-stop shop. We do medical and fire. So that's why we decided to put medical in our name, because that's 80% of what we do every day.
That's great. And so Mesa has grown quite a bit over that period of time. For those who might not be paying attention, just a couple of weeks ago, the latest census figures came out, and Mesa moved from being 38th to 36th largest city in the United States. Right. 485,000 people, which means when the Cubs are playing a game, 500,000 people in the city of Mesa. So, Mary, how do we respond? How do you take care of 500,000 people?
Right. So we have 20 fire stations. We have 432 firefighters in the field. And so we are very, very busy in Mesa. During Cub season, our call volume, of course, increases tremendously, which we're good with. We are prepared for that. But we just manage our resources. We try and be as efficient as we possibly can with our resources so we can respond on the 66,000 calls that we get each year, that we've gotten last year. And every year it goes up by 3 to 5%.
66,000 calls last year. Right. That's amazing. And so, as you know, Mesa is well known as a community that tries to do more with less. Part of the things that people love about Mesa is we're an affordable community. We don't tax people a lot. So in order to do that, we have to be innovative, right? What are some of the, and Mesa Fire is famous for being innovative. Give us some examples of the things that Mesa Fire does to be innovative.
Great. We have an amazing staff. It's never one person that does all the work. We have an amazing group of folks that work behind the scenes to really make things happen. Something we did 3 years ago is we applied for a $12 million healthcare grant, which we were fortunate enough to get. We decided some calls are low acuity calls and maybe don't need 4 people to be on the scene. So what we did was we combined a nurse practitioner with a paramedic, 2-person units, and we put those to respond on low acuity calls. Now the benefit of these calls is sometimes when you have someone with a minor injury, maybe we get a call, and we get an array of calls, from critical, life-threatening, right, some in the middle, and some that are emergent for the person, Maybe someone calls for a sinus infection. They live by themselves. They're by themselves. In the past, if we had nowhere else to take them, we would take them to the ER. But with this nurse practitioner unit, what we do on the scene right now is the nurse practitioner assesses the patient, writes a script, gives them an antibiotic on scene. The person can stay home. Number one is best for the patients. Number two is best for the healthcare system as a whole. And it prevents the patient, generally elderly or extremely young. Oftentimes when you go to the ER, you are exposed to many other germs and can get sick of other germs that you've been exposed to as well. So it's an all-around great way to treat the patient and be efficient.
It really is, and I think over any given day, it's not unusual that there are fire departments from all over the United States visiting Mesa, learning more about this program.
We do have calls. We've talked to FDNY, Colorado, California. A few departments actually put this in place in their cities after they came and spoke to us when we started the grant 3 years ago. Now a couple of departments are doing this very thing in their cities.
That's great. So we have those community care units that roll on the low acuity calls. The goal is to provide medical care, not necessarily transport someone to the emergency room. That's great. And there's also mental health vehicles, is that correct?
Right.
Tell us about that.
So in addition to this, we have behavioral health units, and that is to respond on strictly behavioral health calls. In our city, call volume for behavioral health type calls increased three times. So they tripled in the number of calls we were going on behavioral health type of issues. So we have a crisis counselor paired up with a captain paramedic on a 2-person unit, and they respond strictly on behavioral health type calls. Again, in the past for behavioral health, and that's a very touchy subject. Anytime someone would even threaten, let's just say a suicide type call, we would have to take them to the ER, because they're a danger to themselves. That person would sit in the ER maybe 2 days, 3 days, and then get transported to a behavioral facility. With this unit now, we call out the behavioral health unit. They come to the scene, they assess the patient right there. They determine whether the patient can stay home with family around, and they put a safety plan in place, or they determine whether they need to go straight to a behavioral facility. In doing that, and we've been very, very successful, about 80% of the patients they go on, they've been able to divert from going to the ER. They've either left them at home with the safety plan with family, or have taken them directly to a behavioral facility. Again, what's absolutely best for the patient. Because they don't need to go to the ER. Now some we have to take to the ER because of medical components, but 80% of those patients did not need to go to the ER, and we've taken them directly to a behavioral facility.
I'm not sure everyone understands what a big deal that is. If you have a mental health scenario and you can take someone, if you can bypass the emergency room where that individual would sit sometimes for many, many hours, if not days, before they got the right certification to go to a mental health facility, think of how much better that is, not just for that person, but for that person's family and for the healthcare system. So this is a national debate we're in the middle of right now, healthcare and how do we respond. And Mesa is a great place to look for some very innovative answers on this.
And another piece of the behavioral health, children, for some reason, children, when they end up going to the ER for behavioral health, they're there for 5 days, 10 days, 12 days, because they're much more difficult to place. So when we go on children on these calls, sometimes those calls are like 4 hours long. It takes longer, but the patient goes right to a behavioral facility. So it prevents them from being in an ER for several days, and kids are generally there many, many days.
One of the privileges I have as mayor is the opportunity to go on ride-alongs with both police and fire. And whenever I do that, I'm struck with the impression that mental health and addiction are the root cause of nearly all of every time you go out on a call. And so that is an issue that we just can't continue to not focus on as much as we have in the past. Mary, what's kind of next for Mesa Fire in terms of being innovative and figuring out the most productive, most affordable way to respond to some of the problems we have?
Great question, Mayor. So what we're doing now is we're expanding our social services. There's a couple things we're doing with that. We have what's called our loyalty customers, the ones that call many, many times. Anyway, so we find out that we need to, sometimes there's better ways to treat them. And so what we do is when someone goes on a patient that we've gone on many, many times, we all do electronic reporting. We've been doing electronic reporting for like 10 years now. The crew, when they get there and they realize this patient needs something beyond just 911, there's other services we could provide. They click the box on the electronic report. It goes to our social services division that has a behavioral health person, not a crisis counselor, but more that does social work. And then they'll go and meet with the family and meet with whoever the patient is, And then they give them the social services connections that they need for any further things beyond medical. Sometimes it's anxiety, sometimes it's elderly folks that are not ready to move into assisted living, but when you go on them many, many times, the social worker will work with them and get them connections that they need. So number one, it's best for them because they don't always need 911, but that was what they were used to doing. And the social service workers go out there now and they help them right there on spot and get them the connections they need.
That's great. That's a very compassionate way to do business, but frankly, it's also a very cost-effective way. Because like you say, if you're out doing preventative care, anticipating, hey, this is our umpteenth visit, what can we do to prevent this happening over and over again? You're not only helping that individual, you're saving the city a lot of money.
Absolutely. In fact, I just talked to the social worker yesterday, and she said we had a patient that we responded on 9 times, 4 months ago, 9 times in 2 months time period. The social workers went out there and they haven't called 911 for the last 5 months.
That's great.
So it's a really positive program.
Mary, there's lots of audience questions for you,
okay.
as I could have predicted. One of them is tell us what the Mesa Fire Department's role is with regard to our airports. For example, Gateway and Falcon. We have 2 very, very busy airports in our community. What role do you play there?
So we have a called an ARF team. That's an aircraft rescue firefighting team at both airports. Gateway actually funds about 6 of our firefighters at Gateway, but we have a whole engine company and 2 foam trucks at Gateway. Foam trucks are the big aircraft trucks that when planes are on fire, if planes come in with problems, foam trucks go out there and they're ready to prepare to foam down the runway in case there's a fire. So we have 2 foam trucks and an engine at Gateway, and we also have a foam truck and a full engine company at Falcon Field as well. Even though Falcon Field is a general airport, it's a very, very busy airport. Yeah. So our firefighters are very well trained, and we have aircraft rescue firefighting specialties at both airports.
We ought to come back sometime and talk about nothing but the airports in Mesa. I think Falcon is one of either the 3rd or 4th busiest general aviation airport in the country, and Gateway is equally, if not, well, is more busy, but it's also a big commercial airport. Another question from the crowd is, tell us about staffing on a fire truck. Okay. So you've described a couple of different types of vehicles.
Right.
How do you staff the different vehicles that you?
So what is critical for Mesa and what we've done with the support of the mayor and the council is we have fire trucks strategically placed across the city. And that's so important because even though fires are 20% of our business, we never know where they're going to be. In Mesa, 3 or 4 times a day, we get a fire. We don't know where in the city it's going to be, so it's critical that we strategically place our 4-person units across the city. They're all hazards. They can provide any kind of care. And truly, when someone doesn't know who to call, if there's not a crime being committed, it's the fire department. We do on an array of type of calls. Every engine out there has a captain who is responsible for those 4 folks. An engineer is the driver and also responsible to pump the truck and make sure all the supplies and gear is ready to go on the truck every single morning, and then 2 firefighters. We need 4 people on every fire truck in the city. There's OSHA rules across that apply to the United States, but when someone goes in a fire, it's called the 2-in, 2-out rule. When 2 go in, you have to have 2 outside to prepare in case something happens. So that is so important that we have that. That's why we have 4 people on a unit. And it's not just for fires. There's so many medical calls. When someone has a heart attack, a drowning, all these traumatic type calls, you need 4 people there to really service the patient with the best care possible.
And again, I'd encourage people to look for an opportunity to do a ride-along with police and fire. Having had that experience, you'll come away with just this, the professionalism of the people that do this work for us is something that we all should be very, very proud of. Mary, to that topic, one of the questions that has just come up from the audience is talk about becoming a firefighter. What are the attributes of a firefighter? And how are we doing in terms of staffing? Do we need more firefighters? Do we need more resources in your area?
Right. Question where it's at 108 people responded to East Mark. That's right. Yeah. That's a growing area for Mesa, and right now it's a long distance for us to get there. We don't have a station in that area just yet. But we want to make sure that we're able to service as much of the community and we're trying to get to any call within 5 minutes or less. But that's a goal of ours. We're not there doing that 100% of the time, but that is a goal. So we absolutely, firefighters would always help us in making sure we get to the call much sooner. We have crews that come from further away to get to certain areas in the city. So we do need staffing to be a firefighter. As fire chief, there's a few things we have We have amazing people right now. We're doing something right now in our workforce because we have 432 amazing people today. So whatever the process was in the past, it was done right when they looked for the qualities. But for sure, someone has to be a team player because in the fire department, you're never working alone. You're working as a team every day. Team player, hardworking, and the right attitude. We want people with compassion. When we respond on folks in the field, we need to be compassionate every day. You know, the city runs about 170 calls. The fire department runs about 170 calls a day just in the city of Mesa. And you need to be compassionate every single time. I don't care if you went on someone 1 time, 10 times. It's critical to show compassion every single time. The requirements are you have to be an EMT. You have to pass what's called it's a CPAT, which is a Certified Physical Abilities Test. They have you pull hose and go upstairs and do these kind of things to make sure you're physically fit enough to carry the gear. The gear that you wear, your SCBA, your breathing apparatus, and your turnouts weigh about 75 pounds. So you have to probably weigh more than 75 pounds in order to move around in the gear. That's probably one of the requirements. But there's no age limit. There used to be height. There's no height limit, no age limit. EMT, have physical abilities test, and then we take a written test. Last year, when we opened it up, we shut down at 1,200 applications. We received 1,200 applications in 3 hours and 45 minutes. So people went to go sign up that night, and they're like, I thought you opened it today, and we did. We opened it at 8, but it closed at 11:45 because we had 1,200 applications that fast. So we take a written exam, and then once we pass the written exam, we take about last time we took about the top 600 scores, and then we put them through one interview and then a second interview.
You know, I met some of the folks that have been through that process, and it is amazing that the quality of the folks that are attracted to the fire service is really off the charts.
Right.
I'm glad you guys have gotten a chance to kind of get a little more familiar with Mary. She really is one of the most impressive people you'll meet. So, Mary, people are asking questions about your background. Tell us about this cool story of you growing up and your family business and the grocery store. It's a great story.
Okay, thank you. So I'm number 6 of 13 kids in my family. We were brought up in a 3-bedroom home in Chicago Heights, Illinois. My family's still there. And we own an Italian grocery store. The store's been there 73 years. Actually, my mom worked in the store. Her parents owned it first, and she worked in the store as a teenager. And then the wedding gift, now, with the kids who had grown up, we didn't know that was such a great gift, and we all had to work in the store every day. But a wedding gift from my grandpa was to give it to my mom and dad as a wedding gift. So then we had the store from there. So all the kids worked in the store from, as soon as you could add, you were a cashier in the grocery store. And so all of us loved math, but we all loved school only because every day off from school meant you had to go work in the store. So when the teacher would say, we're off for Memorial Day, we're off for Labor Day, we'd go, oh, no. So we all had to work in the store. And I think that's why we all got involved in sports, because then you had to go to sport, you had to go to your games, you had to do practice. But the neat thing is we all grew up in the store, having to work in the store. And even today, my family still runs the store. My brother Guido runs the store, and people think I make that name up, but Guido Damiani is a real name. It's a real Italian name. Yeah. My crew didn't believe me when my brother came by, and I introduced him one time when he came to visit, and I said, this is my brother Guido. And they go, you made that name up. I go, I did not. In Chicago, it's like John, that name. Yeah. So it's very common. Yeah. So we all worked in the store growing up. Now my brothers and sisters, on their days off from their jobs, they all go and work in the store to help out on their days off from their regular job. So we're going back in August. We go back every summer, and I have to do a full week in the store. They just put me right on the schedule. As soon as they go, when are you flying in? And then I get to put on the schedule for the whole week. I have to pay for all the salami and the sausage my kids eat when we're there. So but another rule working in our store, my dad's rule was you don't get paid, because you have to do your share to support the family. As a kid, you thought that didn't seem fair, but as an adult and as a mom, I go, that seemed very fair, that they didn't want to pay us to work in this. So none of us got paid working in the store, but it taught us a lot of good things. It taught us really about customer service from a very early age. It really did. And we're getting along. So we have a very, very close family. But yeah, so if you're ever in Chicago Heights, come in. We'll give you a free Guido special sandwich. Just say you're from Mesa. Literally, you say you're from Mesa. And I call Guido and say, hey, you're going to have a couple of visitors from Mesa. He fixes you up with an Italian sub that you probably can't get anywhere around here. Yeah.
That's the best offer you're going to get.
Yeah. It doesn't beat the 1 hour on the show for who won, but it does. If you're ever in that area, south side of Chicago, and we are Cub fans. The mayor asked me, how did that end up?
Yeah, I mean, Chicago, I'm not telling you, but a lot of times you assume that somebody from Chicago is a Cubs fan. And they go, wait a minute, I'm from the south side, and that is White Sox territory.
It is.
So how in the world did your family survive in South Chicago not being White Sox fans?
That is a great, I don't know, my dad just fell in love with the Cubs, and you know, when you grow up in this, with all these kids, and from day one, it's the Cubs everywhere. And we're talking hardcore Cub fans.
Really? Yes.
Our store business is based when there's Cub home games at Wrigley Field,
yeah.
for parties, and so yes, we are so we pass Kaminsky Park, we pass White Sox Park to get to Wrigley Field.
That's amazing.
When we go to Cubs games.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. It just so happens I'm in Mesa with the Cubs right here, so it's right back at home.
Well, I am so tickled that you guys got a better introduction to Mary. We really are. One of the best things about Mesa, Arizona is Mary Cameli. We are very fortunate to have you in a very critical position in our community, Mary. We're very proud of Mesa Fire. As a mayor, I got to tell you, one of the big challenges I have is, and Mary mentioned it, we need to get more resources. We need to get more staff into our fire department. So that's something that we're working on. We're all very proud of the great job you do and the great department that you lead, Mary.
Thank you,
very much.
Appreciate that.
You bet. Thank you. Appreciate you.